Alrighty, well, maybe I'll kick things off for the team here and we'll get started. Yeah. Welcome to our fall MiteY Mentorship program. As many of you guys know, this is a relatively new program as part of ITE Western District, a very fairly new initiative as part of the career guidance track that Jenny Tapat is the chair for, and Henry Hamill and myself are the program leads, really looking at new ways to sort of help with career guidance, provide young professionals in the industry with some information that they didn't know about in terms of steering their career in the direction that they want to grow, and just sort of more information about how to navigate a field that's very dynamic and has a lot of different unique and sort of interesting and also very nuanced disciplines and areas of focus. So, that's sort of the mission that we have as part of our Western District MiteY Mentorship program, really to connect mentors with mentees and be able to provide some insights into these various different areas and aspects of our profession. Because this is a fairly new initiative as well, we usually have a pretty small group, which is a good thing for us to be able to keep it interactive. And for those, at any point in the presentations, because we're pretty small in numbers today, I think we should be able to, jump right in and help answer questions when you guys, maybe when you guys have one, maybe drop it in the chat. If there's a good point to stop and pause and ask those questions, I'll help field some of those. I will then transition over to introduce our speakers for today. As the meeting title suggests, we are walking through different project life cycles today and providing a glimpse into each one of our presenters' worlds and the things that they work on a day-to-day basis, things that in all the insights that they've gained throughout the years in their profession to help the young professional or student sort of enter into this specific area that they work on. And I think one of the great things about today's presentation, as well as, even if there's an area that's not an area that you're planning to pursue or, have a direct connection to at the time being, there's a lot of value in knowing about what's happening in that other discipline and how that work interties or is connected with the work that you do and influences the work and outcome of the different work products that you're engaged with. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Our first perspective today will be providing a glimpse into that early stage planning into a project, like how projects move forward, how funding happens. And our first two presenters actually is Katie Kasiemba Halsey from the city of Bellevue. Katie works on a variety of policy analysis and assists with sort of various efforts in the regional, state, and federal positioning for projects and that visioning of projects. So she leads a cross-departmental team that helps the cities pursue these strategic initiatives, most recently involved in some of the bipartisan infrastructure law efforts. She has a deep history of working throughout the region on transportation projects and policies, including Sound Transit, Washington State Department of Transportation, King County Metro. She received her BA from the University of Washington in political science and communications, and an MA in political management from the George Washington University. Tag teaming with Katie is Wendy Taylor from HNTB, a consulting firm. Wendy is a recognized leader with over 30 years of project management and transportation planning and design experience in a wide array of projects. Throughout her career, Wendy has been a strong advocate for innovation and progress. Her experience includes having provided leadership on the I-405 mega program for the past 20 years, helping WashDOT deliver over $4 billion of funded projects ahead of schedule and under budget towards completion of their $20 billion multimodal, multi-agency transportation vision. There's a long list of projects there, and she was part of the first design-built projects in the region with over 50 plus miles of express toll lanes. Wendy has both a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a Master's of Arts in Urban Planning. I will also introduce our other speakers today so we can transition seamlessly through as well. Our next speaker following Katie and Wendy is Ravi Narayanan. Ravi is a senior project manager with Mott McDonald Group, another consulting firm based out of their Sacramento office. Ravi's key expertise is in the area of advanced travel demand forecasting and traffic operations modeling. Ravi obtained his master's degree in transportation engineering at the Institute of Transportation Studies from the University of California at Davis. He has since served as a consultant for serving projects throughout the California and Western United States region. He is a licensed professional engineer in civil and traffic engineering in the state of California, and he has served as a past president for ITE in the NorCal section. For those that are just joining, we're just doing some quick intros here, and then we're going to head right into our presentation. Our last speaker for today is Joshua McNeil. He's a principal engineer at Iteris in their mobility consulting solutions group with over 15 years of experience. And he is also a registered civil engineer and traffic engineer in the state of California with the PTOE certification. Josh has delivered a number of PS&E packages, which he'll talk about and describe what that acronym is during his presentation, for traffic signal systems, fiber optic systems, freeway traffic management systems, as well as traditional traffic handling, signing, pavement delineation plans. He is also a past president for ITE within the SoCal ITE section in the UCI ITE student chapter. So without further ado, I will pass this on to Jenny so she can help us to share the slides, and then pass it on to Katie. Sorry about that.
Okay, I am just gonna make sure I can use my clicker. There we go. Did I do that, Jenny? Looks like I did. Success with technology. Hey y'all, I'm Katie Kasumba-Halsey. I'm really delighted to be joined with Wendy Taylor, and we're going to be walking through kind of the early level of planning for a project. You may be interested in knowing, how did I get here? And let me tell you, it wasn't by way of technical training in transportation. As you probably already heard, I do political management and strategy work. So it may seem surprising that I love transportation as much as I do, but it just goes to show that anyone can be very successful in the realm of transportation from many different disciplines. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how my role in transportation has evolved. And Wendy has been a very strong mentor for me over the last few years, so I'm glad to be joined by her too. So you may think that, or maybe you don't think, but many people think the transportation project is quite an easy endeavor, that it doesn't require too much work other than a shovel, maybe some quick crete, and get that sidewalk built, or do some technical work to the roadway out in front of your house. But I think, as we all know, there is a lot more that goes into a project. And Wendy and I will tell you a little bit more about the early phases of that life cycle. So Wendy, I thought because you have so much expertise, do you want to just quickly cover the life cycle and why we're focusing on planning?
Yeah. So as Katie sort of talked about, a project starts sort of with an idea, a need. It goes through many phases of it, including planning and design and environmental and permitting. Somewhere along the line, funding comes available for all these phases, getting into construction, and then that opening. And throughout the life cycle, we're continually looking for input, from the public, from the stakeholders. We need a variety of expertise. Just like Katie said, some of them traditional, some of them non-traditional. But these projects are very complex and need a lot of collaboration, partnership, and probably foremost, flexibility.
It's a really good segue into where a project comes from or originates. And we're going to go into each of these bubbles a little bit more in detail, but we're going to focus on studies, public input, solutions, or different kind of options, and then securing funding so that the project can advance. Now, I will say, and Wendy, I think you will echo this, that oftentimes these different elements happen throughout the course of a project. It doesn't necessarily have to be just in planning. It can also be in design and perhaps sometimes during construction as well. So this continuum really does last longer than just planning. But I will pass it over to Wendy to focus a little bit more on studies.
Yeah, so the work generally starts with a comprehensive plan. So it's setting your vision for the project. So on the 405, I'll use that as my example because I've been there for 20 plus years. We developed back in the late 90s, early 2000, with extensive input from our stakeholders and the public and our users, as well as technical expertise, a multimodal, multi-agency vision for transportation on the east side. And that engagement and that buy-in and that stakeholder input didn't stop with the study. We've continued to utilize that partnership throughout the implementation and delivery of it. And it wasn't just a WSDOT delivery. Each agency had a piece of the pie that sort of built in their ownership of it. And, part of that study was developing options and solutions, and they're usually around a broad range. So in this instance, we looked at something with 3 additional lanes and high capacity transit down to taking away a lane. So, a wide variety of thoughts and getting to the right solution for the community.
Wendy, I'm going to jump in here and ask you a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I don't think you're prepared for this, so hopefully it's right at the top of your tongue. What challenges have you encountered at this phase, and how have you navigated those challenges?
Well, there's always a variety of challenges throughout it, but I think the biggest thing is to always sort of have transparent, trusted conversations. If you don't know the answer, don't pretend that you do. Just be open and honest about it. And that helps develop that trust that you're going to need throughout the whole process, I'd say.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to take the next slide, which is about stakeholder input or working with the community. Now, Jenny, if you happen to have this available, you're welcome to put up the poll that happens to be about Parks and Recreation, and I'll talk on the background. So as I'm sure everyone is familiar, people have a lot of opinions, don't they? And the role of community engagement or community outreach is to really work with the project team to make sure that we are meaningfully listening and working with the community to identify inclusive opportunities for two-way conversations. So I'm putting up this poll. This is, if you do not know these characters, it is A-OK. But if you were a Parks and Recreation character, who would you be? Leslie Knope, Ron Swanson, Tom Haverford, or April Ludgate, or I don't know. And feel free to submit. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Parks and Recreation, it is okay. But if you ever happen to find a clip about public meetings and working with the public, they give a very nice parody of it. In fact, Leslie Knope, the main character, at one point talks about how members of the community really care about where they live. And she quips that when a person from the community is yelling at her, what she hears is that the people that are yelling are caring very loudly. And sometimes, oh good, there's a few other Leslie Nopes in here. No Aprils, thank goodness. Sometimes that's what's required in this portion of phase, is that we really have to listen. We have to be sensitive to other perspectives, and we want to be open to hearing thoughts and perspectives. This often will foster a sense of trust and engagement with both the project team, the public, and also decision makers. And that will become really important as we look for funding and phasing opportunities in the future. Now, I'm just going to tell you a few different things that are important for a person who might be in this place in their career working with the public. First of all, it's important to understand how to distill information. A lot of engineers, I'm sorry for those of you who are engineers, but that's where we come in as communicators, as we take your information, we distill it so that it's understandable for members of the public. That can also happen in planning, design, and construction, so it's not just unique to planning. Also, really evaluating work through social and racial equity lenses and understanding where people are and meeting them where they're at. Elevating issues to leadership is very important. And also making sure that you have some really interesting marketing strategies for getting the information out. For instance, on the screen, you see a public open house. You see a group who's going to a council meeting wearing all green, lime green, and advocating for a project. And then you see the use of a website to engage the public. Okay, Wendy, I'm going to hand it to you for the next one, unless you want me to start the one. There we go. I think it's moving.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Okay, Jenny, I might need help on this one.
There we go. Whoop, too far.
There we go.
Okay. So as Katie talked about, engagement and community input is key, and it's key not only at the beginning, but it's key throughout the process. We're not doing these projects for ourselves, we're doing it for our community, and we gain so much insight from them and our stakeholders. And so they're critical in, you know, as we said, defining that need. They're critical when we're prioritizing what our next set of improvements are on such like a program like 405, where we have a long-term vision. They're critical in helping us with those priorities, help get them funded and financed. You know, whether that's being signing a letter of endorsement, whether it's going down to the legislature and talking about the importance of it. And as Katie talked about, you know, her role as a communicator or policy helps take that very technical information and give them the tools that they need to help endorse these projects. And so I think I alluded to it before, but we've had a stakeholder group that we've worked with for the last 20 years on 405, and together we successfully have delivered 50 miles of express toll lanes, which was a brand new concept back in the day, financed that with the toll revenue. So I can't stress enough, you know, how much the stakeholder engagement is an important piece of it.
You know, Wendy, something that I now staff a member who's on that same executive advisory group, and something that they really have to do a lot of is evaluating the trade-offs. Mm-hmm. What is the best way that you could give advisement to somebody who's interested in knowing what it takes to work with decision makers in evaluating those trade-offs? What skills might a person have?
I mean, I think you said it earlier that it's important, we're engineers, right? And we can sort of see a solution and a technical way to solve a problem. But it's communicating that value out to those that are making those decisions and giving them those tools of trade-off that is really, stretches an engineer, I'd say, and is critical to any phase of the project.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, now we'll get to our final slide in this portion of the program, which is securing the funding. And like I said earlier, securing the funding can happen at many different phases of a project, but for purposes of today, we'll keep it in the planning phase. As Wendy noted, oftentimes this it takes a village, it takes a group, and oftentimes it takes many different resources from where that funding might come from. It might come from the federal government, the state, regional, or local. It could come from different granting opportunities. It could come from many of these different resources. But oftentimes it takes some advocacy work, or it takes some strategizing to find those opportunities. And so a person who is typically involved in securing funding often works with project managers, with engineers, with subject matter experts to help write and prepare those funding applications through grants. Or they might be, for instance, a lobbyist, someone that Wendy and I both work with down in our state capital of Olympia to request funding through the legislature. Sometimes that takes many different forms, like a group or a signature on a letter, or in the case of Bellevue, we have a state legislative agenda where we request different projects each year. A few different skills that I think are critical in this field is persuasive writing. It's very critical. Understanding of capital project development, relationship building, coordination, and building relationships not only internally within your project team, but also externally with other agencies or advocacy groups. I also feel that it's very important to be able to work with decision makers. And sometimes your decision makers could be elected officials, or sometimes they could be influencers. So I think that is it for our portion of the program. We'd be happy to take questions or move on to Ravi.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you for giving us a glimpse into your world and how projects are conceptualized and how they sort of evolve into funding. And I think we'll save questions until the end here, so we have time to go through Ravi and also Joshua's presentation as well. For the next 15 minutes here, we're going to spend some time walking through sort of what happens once you have that funding and once you conceptualize your project and you're ready to get started here and go through all the analysis and all looking at all the different aspects of modeling and permutations of prior to design. Ravi's going to walk us through that. So let me turn it over to Ravi here.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Sorry if I'm sounding a little hoarse today because I don't have a great throat here today. But anyways, again, thanks, Danielle, for the introduction you gave me earlier. I won't take up too much time reintroducing myself or belaboring on my background here. I'll just say I've been in the industry for about 25 years, and I like to call myself a plan engineer. That's a term that a lot of young people should get used to, and it's actually becoming a mainstream term as well in our industry. Planners are thinking more and more like engineers, and engineers are becoming more and more like planners in terms of understanding the overall project lifecycle and trying to understand where projects come from and so forth. I'm an engineer by training, but planner and engineer by practice. And I will get to these things a little bit through the course of my presentation as well. But the focus of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be specific to planning, environment analysis, and traffic modeling, which is really my technical forte of what I've been doing for the 25 years of my career. Just clicking on it. but it's not moving to the next slide here. Jenny, thank you. I'll just briefly go over the product lifecycle stages without a lot of overlap or regurgitating what Katie and Wendy already did a terrific job touching on. And then I will touch on a few project factors and requirements, mostly skill sets and so forth, that we look for in the planning and environmental and modeling phase of the project, and then wrap it up with some closing thoughts. But before we get into this product life cycle slide that I think Katie already touched on a little bit, maybe Jenny, if you don't mind, we can kick off the polling for the couple questions I wanted to get feedback from this audience today. I think my questions were about their academic background and how long they've been in the industry. So maybe we could have both of those questions be answered by the so that I get a better flavor for the audience profile, so to speak. While the poll is being administered, I'll just talk about this slide that you see here. Basically, in any project lifecycle, there are 4 major stages, like initiation, planning, design, and construction. And I think Katie and Wendy already touched on initiation and planning to a great degree of detail, actually, with some project case studies and so forth. So I won't delve into that. But as you can see, in the project initiation stage is where you're trying to develop some kind of a project definition and look at stakeholders and also involved in a high-level analysis of the product itself, what we call SWOT analysis for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And also explore the funding. The funding is the lifeline for a project at the end of the day. Show me the money. That question gets asked in every single product lifecycle stage, but then it's never a question too early to ask or too late to ask. So a lot of this is going to be overlapping disciplines, overlapping domains, if you will, between what's needed in an initiation phase versus planning phase versus design phase and construction phase. But to delve into the core of when traffic modeling, environment analysis, and planning, what I mean by planning is conceptual design. The term planning and design and funding, everybody uses these terms, but very context specifically. The level of detail associated with these terms is the one that evolves over a product lifecycle, not the terminology in itself. For a planner, a 25% design for a product is considered design. For an engineer, a 25% design is considered a planning drawing. So it's all contextual and product lifecycle specific. That said, and modeling is the same way. We can do preliminary high-level modeling, we can do feasibility level modeling, we can do planning level modeling, and then we can do design and operations level modeling, and then finally construction support as well during construction. So a lot of overlap in terms of what's needed in different stages of these projects, but what you see in front of you is the general big picture as to how things evolve, especially in a public works type of a project life cycle. Next slide here. Again, this is a similar slide in the sense that this is more focused on public works project delivery processes that are enshrined in, so to speak, in Caltrans, which is the California State Department of Transportation's project development lifecycle. The one that you see on the left side, it's actually like a if you want to get really detailed about project lifecycle and evolution, you could think of projects going from phase -1 to phase +5, a 7-phase project, like interfacing with planning, to conceptual evaluation, to initial planning versus preliminary design, then final design, then construction, maintenance, and then finally project retirement and replacement down the road. So that's how comprehensive a project lifecycle definition can get. And the diagrams and the graphics that you see here are kind of go hand in glove with project management or program management life cycles as well. And this is often used in project management classes, if anyone cares about that type of endeavor as well. And the other flow chart that you see on the right side here is really the fundamental steps involved in the Caltrans project development procedures manual. And as you can see, it's a pretty linear process, but very rigorously defined steps that engineers and planners like ourselves undertake in every step of the way. And that's real flow chart that starts going from project need, which is initiation phase, all the way to project closeout, which is construction, delivery, operations, maintenance, and finally demolition, actually. That said, I don't know if we have the results of the polling here yet, Jenny. If they are, let me know.
We do have the results.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's great. 40%, 40%, and almost an equal split between planning and engineering background, so to speak, and then 20% miscellaneous, which is almost exactly what I would have thought in any IT audience. So that pretty much matches my expectations of. That's great. And then what about the next one in terms of how long people have been in the industry? Well, actually, a fairly mature audience here today, so I guess I can go over and beyond with my. Well, 70% of the people here are been here in the industry for more than 10 years, and the remaining 30% that are actually newbies, meaning have been in the industry for less than 2 years, which means you're all post-COVID-19 generation, so to speak. You've been in the job workforce in the pandemic era and getting your feet wet in the industry, and that's good to know as well. Again, thanks for responding to those polls. That said, let's keep moving right along here. Okay, this is something that I thought a lot of professionals and engineers in the room will benefit from in terms of understanding how different types of factors affect a project through various life cycle stages, and this is not again not without exceptions, but well, for every case there is an exception, but in general, this is the type of trends we see on most public works projects and planning projects. That said, your staffing and resources and costs actually go up fairly linearly or exponentially, even as you get into planning and design. And then at some late stage during construction, the resource requirements precipitously fall. And then the risks, uncertainties, and variances, as you can tell from this chart here, they actually reduce as a project evolves. Like for instance, folks like Katie and Wendy, who deal with project at the front end, deal with way more risks and way more unknowns and uncertainties because of the number of stakeholders involved in the project, the lack of clarity in funding, the political influences, the social influences. I mean, I could almost argue that the planning phase, on the project initiation planning phase of a project, is by far most susceptible to failure and most susceptible to change and most challenging, quite frankly. And that's where the skill sets that Katie mentioned, like the relationship building, the ability to talk in front of an audience, writing skills. I know you mentioned that as well. So I mean, I'm going to talk about that in a slide or two as well. But for what you can see from the slide is that uncertainty and the potential for failure of a project actually diminishes as projects evolve from initiation to planning to the design and construction phases. However, staffing and the cost, the burn rate, if you will, of costs and resources increases as projects gain more clarity and definition from planning to design through construction phase. Almost commensurate with that previous chart that we saw, our skill set needs take a very similar path. Planning and environmental analysis skills, those actually diminish as a project the demand, I should say, the need for those skills, not so much your ability to do planning or environmental, but just the demand for those skill sets in the industry as a program manager. If you're looking at it, the planning, environmental, and even travel demand modeling. Again, you see two purple lines here. Both refer to modeling, but then there's often a misconception in our industry, like modeling includes both travel demand modeling and traffic operational modeling. And I think it behooves to differentiate between those two skill sets a little bit here, in the sense that demand modeling is about more forecasting, and it's more of an art and a semi-science, not as much of engineering needed. But then traffic operational modeling gets into engineering and runs commensurate with the design and engineering phase of a project. So it almost follows in the planning and design life cycle, as opposed to in the initiation and planning life cycle. As you can tell from this, the actual design and engineering skill sets, the more scientific skill sets, so to speak, or deterministic skill sets, analytical skill sets, those come into play as a project evolves through the design and construction phases, and the later operations and maintenance phases as well. So these are the 4 domains we touched on: planning, environmental, demand modeling, and operational modeling. And this slide pretty much presents a summary of skills and tools that are kind of fundamental for these disciplines, for any professional to be successful, in my opinion. Like planning and environmental are in the same bucket, if you will, because because they go play into the same life cycle of a project, like the project initiation and planning life cycles, by the way, life cycle stages, and they quite frankly, are not surprisingly, require very similar skill sets, like urban planning knowledge, so understanding of land use and circulation concepts, an understanding and appreciation of multimodal travel behavior, stakeholder coordination, writing and presentation skills, understanding of environmental laws and regulations, and again, even specialty subdisciplines like cultural, paleontological, historical resources, if you get into the need for those resources as part of your project. And then the tools that most planners and environmentalists would use would include GIS software, mapping tools, graphic and visualization tools, and outreach and communication methods. And I didn't get into the, I mean, I'm not a planner or environmentalist at the level that I use those tools on a day-to-day basis. We do use public outreach experts and planners and environmentalists. As engineers, we outsource a lot of those work. And that's okay as well. So the point here is it's actually very difficult to find one project manager or program manager who's well-versed in every single skill set that a project takes from project initiation through delivery. So if you're a young professional in this room, don't feel like I can't be a master of all trades. You cannot be a master of all trades. It's okay to be a jack of all trades and master of none as well. So, and then that's something that most people understand as their career evolves over a period of time. Demand modeling, operations modeling, kind of my forte as a traffic engineer, transportation engineer. The skill sets that seem to come in more in play in this domain is your ability to handle data in a broad nutshell, be it math, statistics, analysis, computer skills, software skills, ability to run models, understand how we can run models efficiently, ability to work in different types of software and hardware environments. Those things come into play here very handily. So to keep pace with the time here, I won't get into every single detail that you see on the slide, but these are the different types of demand modeling software and operations analysis software and GIS software skills that come in handy in the demand modeling and operations modeling practices. With that said, I want to quickly touch on the key buzzwords in our planning environmental modeling practice, at least from a California-centric perspective, but these are pretty much emanating all across North America. We have passed California Senate Bill 743 here in California that is shifting emphasis to vehicle miles traveled as a primary metric for CEQA, like California Environmental Quality Impact Level SQL level evaluation of projects for transportation impacts. And what that has is a domino effect on how multimodal metrics like VMT are modeled, and that goes hand in glove with the Complete Streets initiative from a design level, not just planning level as well. So we are integrating Complete Streets elements in our day-to-day projects. And this is forcing modelers and environmentalists to take a closer look at VMT modeling and to improve models that model VMT more reliably. Last but not the least, the term big data is catching on big time in our industry, and I'm happy to speak to anyone who wants to know more about what that term means in our industry. But basically, it's like using smartphone-based data to track traveler behavior and use that in a creative or not so creative, more direct manner in planning environmental and modeling practices. With that, I just want to quickly recap a few questions that you see on the screen as young professionals, things that I went through as I evolved as a planner and engineer in my career. And there's no right or wrong answer to a lot of these questions. But if you have these questions in your head, those are okay to have. And those are things that you'll figure out as you evolve through your career. You could go from that red light to a green light as you gain confidence, as you start working on different projects and interacting with your peer group and your superiors and so forth. Again, these are the closing thoughts I want to leave the team with here. There is a lot of technical overlap between different phases or life cycle stages of a project life cycle. And there are commonalities between these different stages, like attention to detail, eagerness and ability to learn and adapt quickly, and dedication to excellence. Pretty much those are common no matter which project life cycle you want to differentiate yourselves in. But there are some differences in terms of types and scales of projects and the budgets and the compensations, quite frankly, between different stages of project life cycle and the day-to-day work tasks. And then most young people ask the question, did I make the right decision choosing a particular career path? And my 2 cents to them is, just make a decision and stick with it and make it right for you. There is no right or wrong answer here. Your dedication to excellence ultimately will help you rise to the top. I think I covered what I was going to at a high level with this presentation. Without further ado, I want to turn it over to the next speaker, Joshua, to take it away from here. Thank you. Hopefully we're doing good on time here.
Thanks, Josh. We'll transition to you right away. I know we have about 13 minutes left today, so yeah, we'll go straight to you without further ado.
Off mute. Okay, there we go. Morning, or I guess good afternoon now, except for people in Hawaii. Still good morning to you. Okay, so I have control now. Here we go. Okay. Going back to that Parks and Rec quiz, I wish we would have included John Raphael as one of our options. Not that I'm John Raphael. I wanted to see if there was any other John Raphaels. Inside joke for the Parks and Rec crowd. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Josh McNeil with Iteris. Quickly, some of the questions I'll be going over. And my focus on sort of the final design and construction is how do I contribute to projects? What skills help? How are some of the projects that I'm involved in delivered? And what specialties comprise, sort of the transportation plan set of a typical final design project. So here's my little project life cycle diagram. I think it's a little bit simpler here, but any road or traffic signal really doesn't just begin and end with a beginning and end of a project. It also goes through this little O&M period here, where the owner or the agency has to deal with whatever was constructed at the end until it's time to start planning and funding a new project. So sorry, Katie, I should have included funding under this conceptual planning here in retrospect from your presentation. But the main area that I'm focusing on is the final design. When we have a defined project, our preferred alternative has been selected. And then sometimes I bleed in a little bit into alternatives analysis and construction management, and sometimes even the O&M and conceptual planning, but mostly I focus in this final design area here. Okay, so plan specifications and estimates. I'm pretty sure most people learn this in school. You know, maybe if you're in planning, maybe not, but I'm guessing everybody does. But just a quick overview. It's creating the construction plans, indicating the locations of improvements, where to install, and also the detailed construction details for like ramps or how to specifically install an equipment. So kind of like what you see on the right side of your screen there. Specifications. That's what is this material and what are the requirements of equipment and how are you supposed to be installing it, telling the contractor specifically what requirements they will be held to when they're constructing whatever your project is. And of course, the engineer's estimate is exactly what it sounds. It's an estimate provided by the engineer what they think is going to construct the project, and it provides the quantities of materials that will be put into the bid package, which I'll kind of talk a little bit in the project delivery section. And also we get involved, I work on a lot of traffic signal timing ITS projects where we're a little bit more involved on the construction side. We're actually installing some of the networking equipment or controllers, and then we're implementing signal timing for like a large corridor. So that involves, you know, going in sometimes in the TMC or to the controllers themselves, inputting timing, testing it, and making fine-tune adjustments. And also working with the manufacturers to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck on all your equipment. And troubleshooting any details that you need some specialized help with. So some of the skills that are required, obviously at the top of my list, I'm in final design. Any CAD experience as much as you can get early on in your career is really great. Even simple drafting exercises you feel like is too below you, it's never too below you, that will help you visualize larger design problems further in the future. And then, you know, really, I think you spend a lot of time early in your career trying to understand standards and making sure you're applying them correctly, but really understanding the links between that and the design principles. It'll help you understand changes that come up in the future. And sometimes when your standards fall short and you need to make adjustments. Some of the design tools definitely isn't everything here, but just the ones that really came to the top of my head. Using, if you're in roadway design, inroads, open roads, civil 3D for surfaces and vertical alignments and horizontal alignments. Visual lighting or AGI 32 for lighting analysis, making sure you have the right illuminants for your safety lighting and roadway lighting. And I'm a big fan of using Bluebeam for QA/QC efforts. There's other you know, PDF tools out there, but that's a good one to use. And we already covered some analysis tools, but some specific ones for signal timing, true traffic, and TransSeq are great to analyze your signal progression. And if you're doing some actual network management, Wireshark is a good one to understand for network protocol analysis. Okay, next slide. Here we go. So what are some project delivery methods? These are just 3 of them, but there's definitely more than this. The most tried and true, the one that people go to the most is the design bid build. That's the one where you basically, if you're an agency or owner, typically you go out and you hire a consultant. You don't always, but that is a typical route. Hire a consultant to design the project for you. They will put together your PS&E, which I mentioned before, which you'll put together in a bid package that you'll put out to bid for contractors. Typically choose the lowest one, and then your contractor will go out and build it. When you have a really large project, agencies or owners, they will try to explore other opportunities. That's where design build or CMGC comes into picture. It's thought to help kind of expedite some of the design and construction piece. Design build, usually they'll bring in a consultant as a project management consultant. They will procure a design builder, which will be led by a contractor with a team of designers. And the designers will design and get certain plans ready for construction as soon as possible. When those are approved, they'll start construction on the various stages that have been approved along the way. CMGC, construction manager, general contractor, not as well known as design build, but also pretty popular for large projects. They hire a designer and a construction manager. Designer designs along the way. Construction manager kind of starts that bid process early. They give their opinion of cost and their feedback on the design, and that kind of helps get into construction a little smoother by the general contractor. So that's a quick overview of CMGC. So quick overview of the disciplines now. There's obviously the civil or roadway plans for roadway projects. If it's rail, it's civil, rail projects or any other types. The will essentially define the horizontal vertical alignment of hardscape features, meeting various requirements like stopping sight distance, clear recovery zone, super elevation for high speeds, ensuring that your typical sections meet drainage requirements, ADA requirements, and your safety hardware like metal beam guardrail or concrete barrier meet all the MASH requirements. They also include the detailed construction details for ramps and intersections and other special features. The traffic plans really define the locations of the traffic control devices on your roadway, including signs, striping, work area traffic zones, traffic control for work area, and traffic signal. Those are the three main elements. Pretty much you're following the MeTCD for those types of for those parts of your plans. MeTCD obviously changes from state to state. In California, we use the California MeTCD, which is the California add-on to the federal MeTCD. But every state has some version of the MeTCD that they follow for traffic control devices on their traffic plans. Also, lighting plans, not strictly speaking within the MeTCD, but and they are considered kind of electrical plans as well, but also in the traffic plans umbrella for mostly for safety lighting, which is required at intersections or crossings or pedestrian crossings, that kind of thing. But also roadway lighting, depending on the agency, they have different requirements, meaning IES and that kind of thing. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap up the ITS real quick, so we have at least a few minutes here for questions. ITS includes a large group of plans, but really all ITS is technology implemented to help to advance the safety and operations of a transportation system. They include communication plans, which are really important because most technology, not all, but most technology requires robust communications to make sure it's effectively implemented. Detection devices, anywhere from inductive loops, video, radar, CCTV cameras for just analysis or using video analytics for things like speed, near miss, and wrong way detection. And changeable message signs for real-time traffic safety message or dynamic toll pricing. Smart lighting, it's getting, there's more and more of that out there now. And also preparing your traffic signals and other systems for connected vehicle and V2X communication future. So those are sort of the disciplines, and that's my little spiel in a nutshell on final design. So I'll go ahead and hand it back over for questions.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for walking us through sort of that detailed design phase of projects. And when, you know, once you get the funding, you've done your analysis and you're translating it to something that's going to be built, you know, that's sort of that, you know, when the nuts and bolts get to all come together, that's sort of what happens behind the scenes. I'll turn it over to our audience or attendees to see if we have any questions for our speakers today. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so maybe I'll throw one out there quickly and do a quick round across our speakers. If there's one skill that you think is immensely important for the work that you do, and you had to only pick one of them, what would that be? We'll go Josh, Ravi, Katie, and Wendy.
My one skill, it would be, if it's just one, it's the part where I said standards to design principles. I feel like a lot of people just blindly start going standards and really understanding how you're applying them and what design principles it covers. That's super important. By the way, you have a question in the chat. Just want to make sure you know. Go ahead.
Oh, great.
But go ahead and finish this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Ravi.
Yeah, if I were to offer an answer to that, I don't know if it's a skill or it's a trait I look for in young people especially is their attention to detail. Be it a planner, be it an engineer, be it a designer, I don't care. Professionals that pay attention to detail is something that we really appreciate, especially as young professionals learn and grow. And it really helps with quality assurance, quality control. And that's where we are able to, as engineers, as managers, we're able to delegate more and more work to a rising young star when the attention to detail and then the ability to learn is there. So that's a often underappreciated skill set that I personally value a lot.
Great, Katie.
I am going to say relationship building because it's so critical that you work with all of the different peers in your organization and externally. And in order for you to have the input from the public and from decision makers, you really have to have a level of trust, and that comes with relationship building.
Super. And then Wendy.
I would say communications and being able to communicate a wide variety of levels, not just technical, but it's the layman. And I agree with Katie on the relationship piece of it. You can't do this by yourself, and you need a lot of help along the way. So
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. There's so many moving pieces here from all the design stages, being in lockstep and good communication along the whole way or throughout the whole journey is so important.
mm-hmm.
I know Henry's got some questions here. Also,
Daniel, I thought that maybe for Henry, we could connect, maybe even you and I could connect with Henry offline.
sounds good.
And introduce him to some of our different ways that we track grants and different funding opportunities.
Yeah, that would be great. And I know we're at the top of the hour and respectful of everybody's time. I know for people who do have meetings as well. There's a question from Will Andrews from WTrans as well. Maybe what we can do to answer that question is, can we get your contact information and we'll get some responses from our speakers today and we'll send it back off to you?
Yes, that works for me. I'll type it in chat.
I do love that question though.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we're at time, and I know, I really appreciate everybody joining our fall MiteY Mentorship session this year, and also very grateful to have our speakers today provide a glimpse of their work. And we went through it really, really quick here, and gave you guys a cruise through in an hour of all the different perspectives. But hopefully this was useful or helpful for you to sort of figure out how are you going to take that next step in your career, or what steps might you want to sort of act upon or explore a little bit more. And hopefully this is useful for that. So thank you for joining us for this hour, and we'll hope to see you guys all soon again.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks
thank
for
you.
hosting us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.